going?
All
right, go ahead and give a description of what you're about to tell us.
Well, okay, in our cabin, last 3 days, we saw bodies of what we thought were ghosts or angels.
And where did y'all see these angels at?
In our cabins, walking around in the restroom, in the front door, and about 2 parts of the fan and cab.
What's KAA?
Kids Across America.
Okay.
And the first night, we saw 4 people, me and a few other boys, woke up because we couldn't sleep. And the thing was, is we saw something of a body walking around our cabin, which we thought it was people playing, but I shined my light and I looked around and everybody was asleep. So I turned it back off and I flipped over. I flipped over again because I woke back up because I couldn't sleep, and I saw it walking around. And then I saw it standing like right by my bed, like looking at me. I turned around and I got scared, so I flipped back over.
All right, can you describe them?
No, it was like a black shadow.
A black shadow,
first
okay.
Time, the first night.
First night.
The second night, we were sitting there. And I mean, the first night still, I looked back up and it's standing right over somebody's bed staring at me, like it was staring at me. Well, that morning I got up and I asked them, I was scared to say something, but I did. I said, I think this cabin is spooky or haunted or something. And so, a few other boys, like the boy on the end down here, said, hey, you saw the same thing I saw last night? And I was like, what did you see? And he said like something was walking around, but I couldn't see what it was. And I'm like, yeah, and another boy was saying the same thing. So then the second night, going to the second night, we were scared to sleep. But they told us to go to sleep, and if you see anything, yell. So the second night is, I woke up, like I finally went to sleep a little bit. I woke up and like I felt something shaking my bed multiple times. And I'm thinking that it's somebody messing with us because we were playing, or it was somebody on the bottom bunk. I was sleeping on the top. And my bed shook from the foot of my bed. It shook like I'm okay. How your mama's trying to wake you up in the morning for school.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it shook. And I looked up and I didn't see nothing. So I went back to sleep. Kind of went back to sleep for a minute, and it shook again. And I'm like, what is this? I look at the foot of my bed, and you see a red light and a face of a human. And I looked up and got scared, like I didn't know what that was. And so I fell asleep, and I was scared to say something. And the morning I told him, say, man, I saw the same thing, but I saw a red light. And the boy said, yeah, like it smirked. And he said, it passed my bed, looked at me and smiled. And I said, you know, I got the same thing, but it smirked at me and it looked at me, and I saw the face. And he said, yeah, I saw a face too. And another boy said, on the other end, like, you know, because I was getting spooked, I didn't want to say nothing either. I saw the same thing. So the third night, we was all sitting down. Me and the boy on the end decided, hey, we gonna sleep on the floor just in case we see something.
The boy on the end, him?
Yeah, Adrian.
Okay.
And
all right, wait. All right, give y'all names, full names.
Daniel McCullough.
First, middle, and last,
just first and last.
Marty Clark.
And Adrian King.
Okay.
And so I was like, you know what, I'm up to the challenge. And the night before, one of the big boys in our cabin said that he was scared because he thinks it's after him. But he woke up and he said that he saw a light and something rushed to him, and he got scared. So we all decided, you know what, we gonna sleep on the floor. So around about 12 o'clock.
And where were y'all counselors?
They were asleep.
They were asleep. They didn't wake up?
They woke up.
They woke up.
They prayed around the room.
Yeah. They prayed in 4 specific corners. Coming in the entrance of the front door, in the bathroom, and by the doubles by the fan. And that night, we were sleeping on the floor. And I saw a body of an old Roman soldier, of a human being. And the thing was, is he had a sword, a huge sword in his hand. He had a shield with the cross on the shield was golden. The shield was big. He had a breastplate. He had a belt on. He had brown sandals, and he had a helmet. And I kind of got the boy on the end. I was trying to wake him up, but he was being slow. He didn't want to wake up until I finally slapped him in the face. And I said, "Say, bro, look up." And he was like, "What?" I was like, "Look in the bathroom. Do you see what I see?" And he looked over and he was like, "A body? Or like a figure or something?" I'm like, "Yeah." I was like, "Tell me what you see." He said, "A body of a human being standing there." And I'm like, "Okay, we on the same page." And so he was like, "Yeah." And so we went to sleep, pulled the covers up our head, and we like tried to go back to sleep. And like, he looked back and he was like, "Say, bro, look back." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" He was like, "Look behind you." I look behind me and you see another figure with the same thing, but instead of him having the sword in one hand, he had a shield and a spear.
A shield and a spear. And they look like Roman soldiers?
They looked like Roman soldiers, but the thing was, they were huge, like 6'2" almost, and was buff in the body, and he stood like a linebacker, ready to pop somebody if it came in. And I was almost like, okay, this is creepy. So we were like, Seth, and we were arguing about who was gonna call him. He was like, "Man, you call him." I'm like, "Oh,
Who is Seth?
the counselor."
Okay.
And so I was like, this is creepy. And so I went to go tell Seth. So I got up and one of the boys was like, "Is somebody shining a light?" And I'm like, "No, but I'm trying to get Seth." He was like, "Then what's that standing over in front of the door?" And I look up and I'm seeing like a big figure, the same thing that we saw in the bathroom. And you saw all of them in 3 spots. None of them went away. The one with the sword was in front of the bathroom. The same thing, another Roman soldier, he looked like a Roman soldier, was standing in front of the door. And the other one with the spear was standing by the fan, like right behind where we were sleeping. And I was like, "Man, Seth, wake up." I see the same thing again, and the figures disappeared. And so he was like, "Are you serious?" And I'm like, "Yeah, man, I'm not playing. Like, this is the 3rd time, and I'm very serious. I'm about to crap my pants. Please get us up out of here, man, because I'm not comfortable." And so they said, "Wake up Will," which is another counselor.
Okay.
So we wake up Will, and we both tell him the same thing we saw. Well, the big boy on the ground said that he felt the same thing rush him again, and he kind of saw something walking around the room and standing at the end of the bed where we said that the thing was standing over him. And then he was scared. He did not want to be in the cabin. Well, they got up and they prayed over the 4 spots again. And
They were praying?
they prayed to God over the 4 spots. That don't, like, please send an angel down so he could guard the door and let them get through. And so we sat there and on the floor, few people got up and got on the floor with us. So everybody was so anxious to see what we saw. Some people didn't see it. And I was like, okay, this is creepy, or am I just seeing this out of anywhere? And the boy was like, "Nah, bro, I'm with you because I'm seeing the same thing." He said, "A dude with a breastplate, a sword, a shield, belt, some sandals, and a helmet." I'm like, "All right, then we on the same page. You're seeing what I'm seeing." And he was like, "And the other dude behind us got a spear." And I'm like, "Yeah." They said, "So they're back." And I'm like, "Yeah." And so the counselor was like, "If you are a demon, please exit this building, exit our cabin. But if you are an angel of the Most High, please speak to us." And they didn't say anything. They stood there in awkward silence, but they looked straight at us the whole time. So the thing is I'm scared, and a boy said, "Hey, did something push on my bed?" And he said, like, "Seriously?" And we were like, "What are you talking about?" He was like something, I'm laying on my bed and something like a foot stepped on my bed, and like my bed went down. And so he got up and ran on the floor with us, got his stuff and ran on the floor. We all circled up. Now there's me, him, another boy, that makes 3. The big boy makes 4. The 2 counselors makes 6. Then you have a boy named Ray and a boy named Cedric. Who stayed in the bed. No, you had Mario, who saw it with me. Then you had Chris, who got out of the bed to come see it, but he could never see it.
So you were not the only person that saw
I'm
these?
not the only person that saw it. And the thing is that we kept on talking and kept on talking. And they would not say anything. They stood in awkward silence like that whole time. So the clock was up. It was about 12:30, and we said, okay, if you are an angel of the Most High and you've been with Jesus Christ and He sent you down here, would you please knock? And all of a sudden you heard a knock. And we thought somebody was playing. They said, bro, Chris, are you playing? Chris was like, no, I heard the same thing you heard. And they were like, okay, this is very crazy. This is getting creepy. And so we sat there and they were like, okay. So we turned off all the fans. We turned the clock face down. It's about 1 o'clock when I looked up before we turned the clock over. We sat there about a good hour, about 2 o'clock. So we turned the clock on. Make sure that the light wasn't coming from the clock. It was on the lights were on the clock.
Mm-hmm.
So none of us knew what time it was. And the figures left, and like later on we were all talking about what we were seeing and talking about what we're hearing and talking about what's going on. And all of a sudden you hear trumpets, chains were jiggling, and voices from Halo saying like, oh, like that. And like all of us were like, shh, you hear that? And some people were like, man, I don't hear nothing. And like somebody was like, hey, wait. He said, it's like a trumpet and chains jiggling and like voices. And I'm like, yo. And it was like, all right. And so the council was like, I'm hearing the same thing. And then we were like, okay, this is getting kind of crazy. So all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a few minutes later, I guess, of what happened, and we didn't know what time it was, all of us were on the floor. And we see a white light on the floor, like, it made a path. And at the foot of the door, you see an angel, like, kind of figure. We didn't think it was an angel at the time. We thought it was a ghost. You see a figure standing there with black hair, a green kind of leaf, like 2 leaves, but they were green. They wrapped around his head, and he had on white clothing. He was kind of like a muscular guy, skinny.
Could you tell what color he was?
He was black.
He was black?
He was black.
Wearing gladiator shoes.
It was like gladiator.
The gladiator sandals?
Gladiator sandals.
Yeah.
And he was sitting there, and he looked at me like, do you see me? And I'm looking at him like, yeah, I see you. Do you see me? And we sat there for about a few minutes, and all of a sudden, you see like the big buff dude turn, and he stands in front like a Roman guard, and like just nothing's gonna get past him.
And these people didn't look like nobody around the camp.
Nobody around the camp. Like, straight nobody. And so we sat there and we started asking questions. And they really couldn't talk at the time that I saw them and another boy saw them. So what we did was we said, okay, are you an angel? And he nodded his head and he said yes. So we were all, okay, yeah, this dude, it's not a demon. And so we started asking him. He's like, okay, why are you here? And like, Will was sitting on the floor. They couldn't see what the thing was that they started to believe, and they said, like, do you have something to tell us? And they nodded their head yes. And then all of a sudden, I said, okay, do you have a message to tell us? And they nodded their head yes. I said, okay, what is the message that you want to tell us? Do you know what it is? He said, yes, but we already know. And Will was like, the council was like, did you hear that? And the other council was like, yes, I heard the same thing. And kids were like, okay, this is getting kind of creepy.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're all on the floor, and I heard them, and like, they started to talk. And so we asked them, why are they here? And they said, is it because there's a war between demons and angels? And they said, no. And he said, okay, is this a real life situation? They nodded and said yes. And so we started asking more questions. We said, are there demons in this camp? And they said, yes. And so I said to one of the angel that was not as buff as the others who was talking to us, I said, are you here for a reason? And he said, yes. I am here to give you a message. And so Mario was like, okay, this is crazy. Like, he just said more than one word. I thought he only knew one. And he didn't talk as if a human language. He talked as he said, like as I are here to send thy message to you. And I'm summing it up, okay? And you just here to give me a message. And I'm like, okay, am I the only one you're trying to give the message to? And he said, no. All that are in thy circle I have a message for all of them. And I'm telling them, this counselor, so the counselor asking him, why can't I see you? And they say, because your faith is little.
And that's what he told your counselor?
That's what he told our
Yeah,
counselor.
that's what he told everybody that didn't believe.
They have little faith. And that's the reason why they couldn't see. And I asked them, okay, so is that the reason why I can see? Is because my faith is not little? And he said, yes. And Mario was like, okay, then Mario said, are you really here to just spook us out of here? Or are you here to just tell us something? And he said, yes, I'm here to warn you that you need to spread the message. And we were like, okay, what is the message? Can you tell us? He said, no. And we were like, why? He said, because 2 people in your cabin right now have strife against our brother. And people started asking, do I have a little strife? They would look at me and Mario like, what did he say? What did he say? We were like, no. And then one of the other boys said, do I have strife? They said, no. So finally one of the boys said, do I have strife? And he said, yes. And the 2 boys that were about to fight in our cabin just earlier today, they like knew that they had strife that day. And they said what they wanted us to do was they talked to us, why thou should not have strife against our brother. And they wanted them to make up. So you have to shake hands. And I'm thinking this is kind of weird because we're the only 2 that see this and it's really understanding. But he saw it, but it's like it was like off and on for people. And I'm like, okay, this is really kind of creepy. So we look up again and we ask him, were you here the first day we saw you? He says, no. It was a girl. So I'm kind of like, all right. And so, I'm happy that it's a girl angel in our cabin. And they were like, are there demons anywhere in this area? And they said, yes, there are demons in some of these cabins. And Will was like, say, man, is that, didn't they kill Jesus or something with a spear in his side when he died? And they were like, yes, in his left side. And I'm like, yeah, because I kind of felt a pain in my left side of my hip. And they were like, yeah, that's kind of freaky. And the boy said, it's like a sharp pain, like something is getting stabbed into the side. He was like, yeah, that's what it is. And so we were all like, okay, this is kind of creepy.
So you kind of experienced some stigmata?
Yeah. And I was like, this is not natural. And it's more like supernatural. And they said, there's nothing supernatural about this. We are as real as you. And so we said, okay, does everybody have a guardian angel? And they said yes. And then one of them said, even the people who are unsaved. And they said yes.
Even unbelievers.
Even unbelievers.
And guardian angels around them. And
So we all have angels that protect us from demons.
yeah, that's what they told us.
Amen. Thank you.
Even atheists have guardian angels.
Even atheists?
Yes. He said non-believers have guardian angels.
And so we asked, are they really angels or demons, or were they from an Illuminati thing? Like we were talking about Illuminati just that morning, and they say no. And they say stay away from the Illuminati. And
So Illuminati is real.
like the Illuminati is real. And so we were really sitting there and said, okay, this is kind of spooky. And so we started having fun with them. Like, after we weren't scared anymore, but we started asking multiple questions, like, okay, where's my future going? And they weren't answering some of them. Sometimes they'll sit there and they'll...
And how long did you talk to these angels?
5 hours.
Man.
And they sat there and they told us, like, some of the questions that we answer, we can't tell you. And they're personal. And so one of the counselors said, is heaven beautiful? And he said, I can't tell you that, that's personal. And he said, okay, what is God doing in heaven? And he said, I can't tell you, that's personal. And he said, do you know when God's going to destroy you? He said, no man knows the time, hour, or day. And he was like, oh, that's right. And he caught himself before. And I told Seth, I'm like, Seth, bro, he said, yeah, I caught. They shouldn't know because God's going to know. I'm like, well, yeah, because he just said, no man knows the time, hour, or day that's going to happen. And so I was like, I'm getting kind of freaked out here. But at the same time, it's kind of cool. So we all got relaxed. And people who didn't see it started to say, okay, I'm starting to see this figure that you're talking about. And like, the man, one of the boys got real upset that he couldn't see it. And Chris, he got upset that he couldn't see the figure. And he was like, where is it standing, man? Where is it standing? We were like, in the restroom. And he was like, man, I'm going inside the restroom. And all of a sudden, like, the Roman soldier drew his sword up like he was getting ready to chop something. And I was like, wait, Chris, don't. And then Mario said, is it okay for Chris to go inside the restroom? And he said no. And so he put his sword right back inside his little shield thing, and he stood there. And I'm like, okay. So he got mad and went back to sleep. Got back in his bed and went back to sleep. So we were all sitting there, and so they talked about brotherly love with us and talked about why we shouldn't have strife against each other. And they wanted our cabin to be as one unit because we are the only cabin that they were going to come to like this. And I said, okay, so do you think I should play basketball or play football by next year? And he says, you should do both. And he said, God has a good work in your life. And so one of the men said, should I stay with my girlfriend and should I marry her? And he said, the choice is yours. And he said, well, yeah, because you can't tell anybody they should not or should marry their it should be their choice. And he literally told them, like, the choice is yours.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, well, that's amazing. And so they all started saying, okay. I said, they said they wanted us to stand up. And Mario said, yeah, get in the line. And he started walking up close. And one of the boys said, okay, there's something is walking close to us. And I said, no, stop. So the angel stopped because he told us it was an angel. And he stopped in his tracks. And he told us he wanted us to stand up. And the dude, the spirit was like standing like right behind me. And he looked at me and he stood up. And he looked straight at, like, down at me. And I'm looking up. And Mario was like, say, man, this is kind of creepy. We're standing in the line. So we all stood in the line and they said, I want each of y'all to pray. So each of us prayed a sentence prayer out loud. Everybody said a sentence in the prayer. And it went down the line and he said, now I want you to end with the Lord's Prayer. So we all did the Lord's Prayer. And that's only the prayer you end with.
Mm-hmm.
And so we all sat there and they said,
Don't go to sleep.
Don't go to sleep. Talk about what you have seen. And they said we can take 3 more questions before we go. And I was like, okay. So we all asked 3 questions. And before that,
What was the 3 questions?
You think Seth said, should I keep on pursuing being a
minister or a minister? A musician or a youth pastor?
And then
he told you
said
to go into
music.
And that's what Seth really loves to do.
Yeah.
And he said,
you asked.
and we the kids didn't know Seth loves music that bad.
Right.
And he never really showed it. He plays guitar, but he never showed that he wanted to be a musician real bad. He said he kind of really wants to go be a youth pastor, but his main dream was being a musician. And the angel told him to keep pursuing into being a musician. So at the time that we finished the Lord's Prayer, we have no clue what time it is. And the angel tells me to tell Will, you should get ready for your set. And he told me, he was like, we made him laugh for a minute because we were kind of being humorous.
Yeah.
And I said, should, muscle man over here, because he's the biggest dude in the cabin. I said, should he stop lifting weights? And he kind of laughed, he had a laugh on his face. And the big ones, they grinned and laughed too. So they had a sense of humor. And we asked him, he was like, oh yeah. And it was kind of like a movie. He said, he was laughing, he was like, oh yeah. And tell Will he should start getting ready for boating. It's time for him to go. It's time for him to go. And I was like, oh, Will, they told me to tell you get ready for boating. And I looked at Will. Will looked at me, and everybody looked at each other. He looked at the clock. The clock was face down. And he saw he had his watch on his arm. Turned the light on his arm, and it was 5:30 exactly on the dot. And Will was like, oh my God, wow.
I get ready like this every morning.
Yeah, I get ready at this time every single morning. How did they know? And he said, I was like, man, I don't know. He said, just tell them to get ready. And so I told them, they said, get ready. And so Will sat there and they said, we shall be here tomorrow. Be expecting us. And they left.
And that was it? Did they ever come back?
Well, they were supposed to come back the next day, but they told one of the leadership guys, and he wanted to see it for himself. CT.
So he stayed in the cabin with y'all?
He stayed in the cabin with us.
And they didn't come back?
No, not that what we know of, but he did say that he felt something standing right beside him and things were moving. And I felt something touching me, and all of a sudden, one of my leg muscles tightened real bad.
On a hamstring.
Yeah. And so I sat up, and I wasn't moving. It just tightened. So I sat up straight, and I was like, it kind of hurt. And all of a sudden, I went back to sleep, and it looked like it was trying to get my attention again. So my other leg hamstring tightened again, and I was not moving at all. I was up the whole time, and I was like, it hurt. And after that, we never heard of it saw it again.
You know, that's awesome.
They said the same thing.
And see that we're not lying. This is what I saw. Okay, I'm there too.
Alright, well, we're going to lose battery power on this camera, so I'm going to switch to my phone.
Alright.
So we're going to end this. We're going to say this is part 1.
Alright.